hush money trial, calling it a scam. Trump delivered remarks Friday where he renewed his attacks on the judge and prosecutor in the case while also airing out other grievances about the trial.
We're dealing with a corrupt government. We have a corrupt country. Our elections are corrupt. November 5th is going to be the most important day in the history of our country.
President Biden Friday detailed a three-phase deal proposed by Israel that would include a ceasefire in Gaza. The proposal would also include the release of all remaining hostages in the enclave. Biden says it's time for the war to end.
Now it's time to raise your voices and demand that Hamas come to the table, agrees to this deal, and end this war that they began.
Families of plane crash victims who died in the 2018 and 2019 Boeing MAX jet crashes met with the Department of Justice Friday. The group is making its case why the one's death.
But make no doubt about it, what the families want, Boeing engaged in criminal conduct that should be properly prosecuted.
Those are headlines now. Here's your weather on the ones.
Hi there, I'm meteorologist Robert Santos. So over the weekend, we are going to be tracking some storms, strong to severe storms potentially across the mid-section of the country. You can see it right here as we go into Saturday afternoon where those storms are from the Great Lakes all the way down into the south. And this will start to push in into the evening hours towards the northeast. In the meantime, we'll be watching for the second half of the weekend a storm coming across the Pacific Northwest. Hundreds for Vegas, for Phoenix, 90s down in Tampa, 80s in Texas, and 80s up in Columbus.
The public understands, and they understand what's. There's a rigged trial. It shouldn't have been in that venue. We shouldn't have had that judge.
Former President Donald Trump wasting no time in speaking his mind after his historic hush money criminal trial. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharon Tazwell. Trump put the trial on blast Friday, less than 24 hours after a jury found the former president guilty of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. Trump says his team will appeal the verdict on many different grounds. Spectrum's Cassie Simeon is in Washington with more on the former president's reaction to the trial, plus a look at what happens next.
The American principle that no one is above the law was reaffirmed.
President Joe Biden speaking Friday for the first time about former President Donald Trump's conviction Thursday on 34 felony counts in New York.
Donald Trump was given every opportunity to defend himself and was heard by a jury of 12 citizens.
Biden said Trump could appeal the case like any other defendant, then added,
"It's reckless, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible for anyone to say this was rigged just because they don't like the verdict."
But from the former president on down, prominent Republicans did criticize the case and the verdict. At Trump Tower in Manhattan, Trump spoke for over 30 minutes without a script, railing against the judge, the jury, and Biden, and declaring his conviction shows democracy and freedom are at risk.
Living in a fascist state.
He repeated his claims that Biden was behind the case, even though there's no evidence Biden had anything to do with it.
The only way they think they can win this election is by doing exactly what they're doing right now, win it in the courts because they can't win it at the ballot box.
House Speaker Mike Johnson telling Fox News he thinks the
concerned about that as we are. So I think they'll set this straight, but it's going to take a while.
Trump is scheduled to be sentenced on July 11th, just 4 days before the Republican National Convention, when he will officially become the Republican nominee for president. Trump has said he will appeal his convictions, but that process will likely stretch beyond Election Day. In Washington, Cassie Simeon, Spectrum News.
And joining me now with a deeper look at what's next for Donald Trump in this criminal case is attorney Ethan Behrman of the Behrman Group. He's also a professor at Loyola Law School. Ethan, what happens between now and the sentencing on July 11th?
Well, at this point, it's the Trump team is going to get ready for their appeal. Once the sentencing happens is when they'll file their notice of appeal. But it really importantly is, in light of what transpired today in New York, is to keep an eye on the side of court could have an influence on what Judge Merchan rules at the sentencing.
Could the former president's remarks about the judge in the trial have any impact on sentencing?
Yeah, it's interesting. He went on quite the attack this morning in New York City when he gave his speech, and Judge Merchan is able to consider these statements that are made outside of court regarding things like, does he accept responsibility for the crimes he's been convicted of by the jury of 12? And if he continues these attacks, he still is under the gag order and could run afoul of that and either rack up more fines or, as Judge Merchan threatened, could send him to jail.
Yeah, and earlier you were talking about the appeal process. So what are the chances an appeal would actually be granted?
Procedure is, after the sentencing, Trump's team has up to 30 days, which I assume they'll do very quickly and not wait. They'll file the notice of appeal, and then they have up to 6 months, which again, they might time because of the election. They'll file the appeal with the First Appellate Division in New York. And then the appellate division tries to move quickly. Right now, on the face of it, I don't see him winning an appeal at that level of the New York courts right now.
Ethan, I'm curious, what is your objective legal take on the fairness of this trial?
Look, I know there's a lot of talk, a lot of political rhetoric around this, but purely legally speaking, a grand jury did their investigation. They referred to the prosecutor. The prosecutor took that under consideration, decided to file, and the defense, and if I recall correctly, the defense still had strikes available to them. Everything was argued really within a well-run court. It was a fair trial.
All right. Well, good to know. Ethan Behrman from Loyola Law School. Again, thank you for your legal insights.
Thanks so much, Sharon.
Another historic trial is set to start next week in Delaware. A jury will soon hear arguments in Hunter Biden's felony gun case. It is the first time in U.S. history the son of a sitting president will go on trial. Hunter Biden faces 3 firearm felonies after prosecutors say he lied about his drug use on a form to purchase a gun. The weapon was then recovered by authorities in a trash can just 1 month after the purchase. Biden has pleaded not guilty. Just ahead on Spectrum News, a fatal ambush. What Minneapolis police are saying about the incidents that led to...
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
At Spectrum, we know how much you depend on the reliability of our products and services. Now, we've taken a new step forward in reliability by identifying potential service issues before they become a problem. If you're affected, we'll contact you and help schedule a free network is one of the many reasons Spectrum delivers the most reliable internet speeds in the nation. Spectrum, keeping you connected.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. Give me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Well, strong to severe storms could break out once again for the weekend. When we look at the severe weather outlook threat for Friday, you could see where there was a slight risk. And here's how it changes for Saturday. It'll expand somewhat to include a bigger portion of Kansas and Texas and all the way up into Nebraska. And it's all because of this right here. So as we go through Saturday here, we'll stop at right around 12 noon Central Time, and you'll see from the Great Lakes down to the south, you can see that. But western half of the country, no storms. And as we go to some of these right across the plains will start to pop up, and these could be strong to severe storms once again. As we go into Sunday, right around noon, this will start to push in across the northeast, and we'll begin to track the next storm coming across the Pacific Northwest up in Oregon and in Washington. Now, Sunday evening, more storms expected to break out here. They'll be pretty scattered, but this is the reason why for Sunday, you can see where the threat here is, the slight threat for severe weather. It moves northward into Nebraska, into the Dakotas, including Minnesota. Okay, the next 3 days here, Minneapolis, I've got rain in your forecasts basically every day, and your temperatures upper 70s to low 80s. For St. Louis, Missouri, 70s on Saturday are coolest over the next 3, and then dry Sunday, wet on Monday with those temperatures in the low 80s. Now, New Orleans, plan for your outdoor, if you're going to be outdoors, for some stormy weather, potentially at least a portion of the day, but drier from Monday with 89 degrees. And for Los Angeles, it's going to be dry there, but we're still looking at the morning clouds, afternoon sunshine pattern there with some low 70s. June 6th through the 10th, here's the precipitation outlook. We're looking at a wetter than average outlook across portions of the Four Corners down to the south, also the northeast, and drier than average across the northern tier.
President Biden announced Friday that Israel has offered a roadmap to a ceasefire in Gaza. The first phase of the proposal would last 6 weeks and include a complete withdrawal of Israel forces in the enclave. Spectrum's Evan Kozloff reports from Washington.
The death toll in this conflict has been immense. On October 7th, roughly 1,200 Israelis, most of them civilians, were killed by Hamas. And since then, we've seen civilians killed in Gaza. And on Friday, President Biden unveiled and endorsed a new Israeli plan to end the violence.
It's time for this war to end, for the day after to begin. We can't lose this moment.
This new Israeli plan calls for a 6-week ceasefire in exchange for the release of many Israeli hostages, the withdrawal of Israeli troops from populated areas in Gaza, and a surge of humanitarian assistance. Biden suggesting that this 6-week pause could open the door for more negotiations that could lead to a long-term peace. Biden saying that this proposal has now been sent to Hamas through Qatar.
For months, people all over the world have called for ceasefire. Now it's time to raise your voices and demand that Hamas come to the table, agrees to this deal, and end this war that they began.
The proposal comes as deadly Israeli airstrikes continue across Gaza in the north home to find immense destruction. And in central Gaza, chaotic scenes like this, where at least 15 Palestinians were killed early Friday morning in airstrikes. This as the Israeli military now confirms its forces have moved into central Rafah. That's despite international opposition. The South Gazan city has become a refuge for more than 1 million Palestinians who have fled violence elsewhere. United Nations officials warning that this conflict is also leading to the risk of famine across Gaza, especially for children.
You ask, are the supplies getting through? No. Children are starving.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, the top 4 congressional leaders from both parties extended an invite to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to address a joint session in Congress, although at this time there's still no word on when or if that will happen. Reporting here at the White House, I'm Evan Kozloff, Spectrum News.
The Department of Justice is planning to move forward with further prosecution of those who died. Say they are pleased the Justice Department has determined Boeing violated the agreements that it entered 3 years ago and hope they will prosecute those responsible.
I have to have some faith that the Department of Justice is going to do the right thing because their sole intent is to ensure that justice prevails. And that means providing all the evidence, putting it on the table, and prosecuting the individuals.
The families are requesting the DOJ move Boeing's criminal prosecution forward as quickly as possible. The 2018 and 2019 crashes resulted in 346 deaths, including 8 Americans who were on the Ethiopian Airlines flight. Earlier this week, Major League Baseball announced that it would be updating all of its official records to include the stats of the Negro Leaguers, statistics from some of the most dynamic and talented players, including Josh Gage, to name a few. Well, Spectrum's Melissa Kroll visited the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum for its unveiling of the Souls of the Game, Voices of Black Baseball exhibit.
This news is another great step towards highlighting the important history of Negro Leagues baseball. It speaks to a time and place in our country that we've learned from and that we continue to learn from. And that's really something that we do here every day.
The Souls of the Game, Voices of Black Baseball, stories, artifacts, legacies being shared. But evolutions in black baseball aren't over. History is continuing to unfold. Record books are being shaken up now that the accomplishments of former Negro Leagues players are being included in MLB statistics. More than 2,300 Negro Leagues players from 1920 to 1948 were added to the MLB, recognized the Negro Leagues as its equivalent in December 2020. A museum visitor is encouraged by the news.
It's recognition, it's shining a light on people who have been shrouded for so long and ignored, and it brings an equality and it levels the field because people hold records that really aren't their records, right?
There's certainly a feeling that if you don't incorporate those statistics into the overall record, it's almost like a double penalty. They weren't allowed to play, and then because they weren't allowed to play in what were then considered the major leagues, now they can't be included. So this is one way of trying to make sure that those legacies aren't lost to the future.
But with inclusion, there is the concern of a potential loss in understanding.
I don't want in 25 years for people to be able to not be aware of our history simply because now I want people to overlook the 100 years of struggle and inequality and kind of poverty and violence and all that kind of stuff that was visited upon black ball players.
Understanding the challenges so we can have a more accurate and appropriate appreciation of what these statistics really highlight, which just so happens to be one of the many things this updated exhibit emphasizes.
We do try to go beyond the surface level statistics and the records and really dig into the legacies, the important legacies and the important history that we can learn and that are shared through the men and women who played in the Negro Leagues and play baseball every single day.
The exhibit is open and visitors are welcome to check it out. Melissa Kroll, Spectrum News.
Easy as 1, 2, 3, or should we see ABC? Well, engine up on Spectrum News.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
If you plan to travel out to the west over the weekend, it's going to be pretty dry, just cloudy in Seattle. Hi there, I'm meteorologist Robert Santos. Temperatures will be pretty mild there in the mid-60s, mild for Portland, for Los Angeles with low 70s there. And just know it's not always sunny in Southern California, so clouds to start off, and then you get some afternoon sunshine. In Salt Lake City, partly sunny. Same thing for Denver and Dallas with those temperatures all in the 80s. We'll feel that as well in Cleveland and New York. A little hotter in Tampa with those temperatures and those temperatures you can see cooler up to the north and warmer down south with some upper 80s there in Austin. All across the area here, you can see in the lower 48 for Saturday. We're looking at warmer than average temperatures once again for New York and Boston. Those temperatures anywhere from 7 to 10 degrees above average. So here we go again. I mean, it's not the upper 80s and even some mid to upper 80s as we experienced a big portion of last week. You can see here for Saturday, Springfield 85, Greenfield 84, Albany right around 84 degrees, and then not as hot as it was about a week ago through places like Farmington and Bangor. We're looking at 70s there. Okay, Boston, Massachusetts, 71 degrees is your average. It'll be warmest on Sunday with 81 there, and then 70s after that. So that'll be closer to average. Portland, Oregon, a cool down coming Sunday, Monday, almost 10 degrees cooler than average for you. And then it'll warm up, and we've got hotter days Thursday, Friday. We will once again Riverwalk in San Antonio. If you're going to be there, it's going to be hot. It's going to be muggy again with these temperatures at 2 p.m. 90 degrees, but feeling more like 99 degrees with some early thunderstorms. San Antonio, Texas, I've got upper 90 to some triple digits coming back into the forecast. Those triple digits Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so that's above the average of 90 degrees. Now let's look at the next 10 days for Dublin, Ohio. Big event coming next week. And that's going to be the Memorial Tournament. And you can see there Thursday through Sunday, we're looking at upper 70s. And that's right around average. The warmest day to start off on the first day, that's going to be around 83 degrees. Okay, looking at the temperature outlook for the entire month of June, all of these areas in orange, especially the darker areas, we're looking at a warmer than average outlook. Right down the middle there for Southern California and Northern California and portions of the eastern half of the country.
Scientists are testing new vaccines in an effort to protect people and cows against bird flu. Well, a recent outbreak of bird flu among dairy cows in the U.S. has prompted the development of the new mRNA vaccines. Well, the U.S. Department of Agriculture will begin administering doses of the vaccine to cows next month. Meanwhile, health officials are working with vaccine manufacturers to develop shots in case bird flu starts spreading to people widely. Well, President Biden welcomed the Kansas City Chiefs to the White House Friday to celebrate their Super Bowl win. The Chiefs beat the San Francisco 49ers in overtime. It is the second year in a row that Kansas City has made the trip to Washington. They're the first team to go back-to-back since Tom Brady and the Patriots 20 years ago. Well, the president called players role models for younger athletes.
Their success, they were looking for ways to work harder, to dig deeper, to improve. Everyone watching, especially our children, that's a powerful lesson about sports in the nation. We're a great nation because we're good people.
Well, the Chiefs also gifted Biden some merch you see there with his own Chiefs helmet. And yes, he even tried it on. For the second year in a row, a Florida student has won the National Spelling Bee. 12-year-old Bruhat Soma from Tampa secured the championship Thursday night. Spectrum's Karina Capabianca spoke with the champion about his victory.
Bruhat Soma, you are the 2024.
Tampa 7th grader Bruhat Soma defeated Faizan Zaki of Texas to win the spelling bee after correctly spelling a series of tongue-twisting words.
Hypercheme.
Hyporcheme.
This was Bruhat's third Scripps National Spelling Bee. He says he spent hours every week poring over words and their spelling. The time paid off when he correctly spelled abseil, meaning repel.
When the spell-off started, my heart was like pumping really fast. I was so nervous, but I knew I've been practicing spell-offs for a while, so I knew I was ready, so I knew I have to try.
Bruhat's win was the second in a row for a Florida student. Dev Shaw of Largo won the competition last year. Bruhat says Dev actually helped prepare him for this year's bee.
He gave me a lot of tips, like he gave me books to study, he recommended some, and then he just gave like tips in general. So yeah, he was really helpful.
With his new free time after countless hours of studying for this competition, Bruhat says he's excited to focus his time on another hobby, basketball.
Well, thanks for watching. Our Spectrum News at Night is coming up right after the short break. Stay with us.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart TV and connected devices, plus on-demand weather forecasts. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the news, connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers. Now available on your favorite devices.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You have a group of astronauts on my hands.
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Never gonna let you go.